freaks and geeks? Thanks for joining us for another edition of Up Your Geek Spotlight. I'm your host, Lou Lamar Booker, and on today's show, we have a special guest, legendary director Adam Green, the creative genius behind the iconic Hatchet series. With the upcoming release of Hatchet, the complete collection, and the limited edition Steelbook, Adam joins us to discuss the Hatchet films, the uncensored content, and the exciting new bonus material included in the highly anticipated collection. We'll also dive into his experiences at conventions and events where he connects with fans and shares his passion for the horror genre. Stay tuned for an insightful and thrilling conversation with Adam Green right here on Up Your Geek Spotlight. First, Adam, thank you for coming on. Thanks for joining us. This is Up Your Geek Spotlight. So how have you been?
I've been great, I guess. I mean, how has anyone really been the last 4 years since the plague? But it seems like things are finally getting like fully back up to speed, because it was just starting to in like 2022. And then we had all those wonderful strikes and just the greatest timing ever to shut down again. But things are finally getting
timing, right?
Yeah.
That was the worst timing. So Hatchet, can you take us back to the beginning and what inspired you to create this series?
Well, it started when I was 8 years old. I went to summer camp, like the one and only time I went to summer camp, because it was awful. And the camp that we went to, instead of playing sports or touching boobs, we had to just clean all the time. Like that's all I remember, was like scrubbing floors, cleaning toilets. I'm sure we did other stuff, but that was
the six in your memory.
Yeah, that was the stuff I remember most. But on the first night, because it was overnight camp for the whole summer, the counselors told us to stay away from this one cabin or else Hatchet Face would get us. And you would have thought over the years they would have come up with even just like a sentence more to that story. But that was it. And apparently it worked, because like that was where they partied at
That's
night.
cool.
So they didn't want kids coming over there. But I was already into this stuff. So I was like, who's Hatchet Face? And they're like, I don't know, he's Hatchet Face. And I'm like, well, how's he gonna get us? Like, what is he gonna do? Why is he Hatchet Face? And they didn't have anything else. So that night, as we were going to sleep, the other kids in the cabin were like, do you think Hatchet Face will get us? And I just made up the story that is Victor Crowley. And so the other kids got so freaked out. I think some of them started crying. And then they called my parents. They were going to send me home from camp after like one night, because I was now the weird kid. And then
oh my goodness,
the story just always stuck in my head, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And then I think it was like 2002 where two of my childhood friends, who are named Ben and Mary Beth, who are the names of the main characters in Hatchet, they were getting married to each other. And Ben had his bachelor party in New Orleans because he was, I think the Final Four basketball games were happening there that year. And like, you couldn't pay me to watch a basketball game, but I still went to be a good friend. Any sport where the score is that high, they need to change the sport. Like, so anyway, regardless, I didn't want to go to the games. So I just walked around New Orleans and I saw a sign for a haunted swamp tour. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Maybe we could do it after the game. Maybe we could do it tonight. But they said, this was at Reverend Zombie's voodoo shop. And they said, oh, we can't do night tours anymore. And I was like, damn it. And we ended up going to watch a band. And the drummer in the band, I think he was a burn survivor. I didn't speak to him, but that's sort of what it looked like. And I don't think he had hands, and his drumsticks were duct taped to his wrists. And this guy could play. I mean, I don't know if you like jazz music, but like it was incredible. And so that night, I'm like, wait a minute, like that story of Victor Crowley, New Orleans, this is a great setting, haunted swamp tour, Ben, Mary Beth. And it was just like, it happened pretty quick. And I wrote the first draft very, very fast. The the first draft, I should say, of course, it changed, and it was originally called Victor Crowley. So then we changed the name to Hatchet when it went into production.
Wow. So you had an interesting trek to that point to bringing that alive. I love the New Orleans. I think the New Orleans setting was actually kind of elevated the story as well.
Oh, for sure. It's there's no other place like New Orleans. It's so unique. It's so beautiful. The people are just amazing. The food is great. I know it's hot and there's lots of bugs and stuff, but other than that, it is just an incredible place.
Listen, I remember my first trip there, and we were doing the graveyard tour, and it started raining and the graveyard started flooding, and so we're like up in ankle high water that then it started to come up to our calf, and then I'm like, oh, so any time now a body's going to come floating through here. And it was this and they had these like haunted tales of everything, so like that was a pretty great so in regards to Hatchet, it definitely did elevate the tale of this character. So Victor Crowley's become this like iconic character in the horror genre. So what was the process of developing his character, and how did you ensure it stood out from the other horror icons?
Well, I think first of all, I wish I had a story as good as the movie for where the name came from, because when we did the first makeup test, John Beekler, who designed the original sculpt for Victor Crowley, he looked at me, he goes, I never asked you. He's like, where did the name come from? And I'm like, I don't know. It just sounded cool. And he goes, you need to come up with something better than that. He goes, make up a story. Say there was like a guy in your neighborhood that used to like kill cats. I'm like, he killed cats? He goes, no, he didn't really do it. But the truth is, it's just the name I came up with and I just always had it. But I think, my biggest inspirations for Hatchet, which most like serious horror fans pick it out immediately, but it was really American Werewolf and Fright Night, because both of those movies took pretty tired subgenres like werewolf movies or vampire movies and then just made them really entertaining. They had good scripts, they had good comedic actors, like they were just such fun, great movies, but then they also had cool effects and scary stuff. And I think, at least from my perspective, the key to horror comedy is to just keep the comedy out of the horror. Like, don't have your main villain doing stupid things or saying jokes or whatever. Like keep him scary. And so that was really the inspiration. It was like, how can I make my version of a slasher movie? And then when it first came out, people were like, wait, there's trees and woods and Kane Hodder. It's Friday the 13th. Yeah. Like, show me a Friday the 13th that was intentionally funny. Part 6 is like, I think script wise, acting wise, 6 is like the most fun out of all of them. But it was funny to watch. And even Kane was like, what? Like, I mean, I get it. It's an unstoppable killer and I'm playing him. But come on. I mean, I lifted full shots from American Werewolf. The very beginning when Ben and Marcus are walking away from the voodoo shop and it just hangs in a wide shot and they just get smaller and smaller. That's directly from the opening of American Werewolf. So it was fun doing festivals and doing conventions where like other serious horror nerds like me who are just such dorks like would come up and be like, oh, that shot.
I'm
like, yes. So that's why I love doing conventions. Like, I just feel like I'm with my people. I don't feel like such a nerd when there's other people that are just as nerdy about this as I am. Yeah. And you always meet the nicest people, which is hilarious because like friends that I grew up with, none of them are really into horror. And they'd be like, what do you mean a horror convention? What is that? Like people who just are into like looking at dead things or something. I'm like, no, it's like families. And you feel like you just met all the friends that you've always had. You just haven't met them before. But I keep saying this whenever I do. I've done like 8 this year because of the strike. I had time to say yes to a bunch of them because normally I can only do it if it's like right before the release of something. But I've literally been all over the country, South, Midwest, East Coast, West Coast. Everybody's awesome. So don't believe what you see on the news that we all hate each other and we're so divided, because I know I'm in a bubble at a horror convention. Those are just extremely kind and open-minded people. It's not like it's not like I went to a Proud Boys rally and I came home and I'm like, no, everybody's nice. I don't know about that. I've never been, but I think we're better off than people like to think we are right now, and we got to remember that. If you just talk to people, you'll see like everybody wants the same things. Everyone wants to be happy and free and healthy, and their families to do well, and it's not so bad. So I hope people calm down.
Yeah. We all need to have a little like session of just silence, and hopefully
Or
people can come
just
back from
talking to
these.
each other. Just go talk to somebody, smile. Like
Yeah.
it'll be all right. But I think we just need more horror movies and more horror conventions, and that will bring us all together.
Yeah, well, these are they're pretty huge. You get a lot of interactions, and the community is so there's this whole togetherness about the horror community. It's my favorite genre of film in general, but it's when you go to the conventions. I remember my first time going to one. I was like, "Wow, this is like a mate." Like, there's people come out. Everyone's like together. Everyone's performing together. They do like the karaoke things, and
Yeah.
you get to interact with some of the fans and the talent, and they're singing together. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you just, even if you have to go alone because you don't have anyone in like your friend circle who's into these kinds of movies or whatever, if you just put out the slightest bit of effort, like just smile, or everyone's always wearing t-shirts of their favorite movies. You start a
Yeah,
conversation that way, but you will leave with like 5 friends that are people that
absolutely.
you had never met before that day.
Absolutely. So let's talking about this Steelbook here. So I've seen it already. People are really excited about this. They're like, I need this right now. And I've seen some things online and on social media. So this includes some uncensored versions of the films, correct?
Yeah, all 4 of them are the uncensored director's cuts, because a
Good.
lot of people over the last 10 years, especially people who found the movies, a lot of them watch them on streaming services that have the edited versions, and they don't
Yeah.
tell you that. So that was it's awful. Like when you meet people, and like especially at conventions, and whoever I'm speaking to is like, oh, I loved when he, after he sanded the girl's jaw off, when he picked her up and then he impaled her on the shovel, and then the person standing behind them is like, wait, what? No, that wasn't in the
Yeah.
movie. And it's like, no, you didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So now everyone can have all the uncensored ones in one place. Each of the original discs is loaded with special features. We always try to go above and beyond with special features for each film. And then there's a 5th disc that's got about 2 hours of new special features that no one's ever seen before, which I'm really excited about. One of the things that's new, when we first made the movie, and remember, this was like an indie movie. I had no idea I couldn't even think ahead to like distribution or who was even really going to end up seeing it. We just wanted to make the best thing we could. But the cast and the crew were writing these journals. We had a website. It was such a stupid website because it was literally just like a tree in a swamp. And then if you clicked around, it made like you'd hear him cry for his father, or you'd hear somebody get killed. And then we had these journals where everybody on the cast and the crew was invited to just post whatever they wanted about what we shot that night or what kind of a time they're having on set. And it was, by the time we were done, it was a lot of stuff, and like almost everybody participated. And then when we got distribution, the first thing Anchor Bay did was delete that website and launch a new one, which I understand, but so I never thought about it. And then my second film, Spiral, is getting a deluxe release in October. And I was looking around to see if I have anything from that. And I found that I had printed out all of the journals from that Hatchet
that's
site.
cool.
So thankfully I'd thought of that. So I had everybody come in and then read their journals in their own voices. So the actors, the crew, everybody read their journals out loud. And then that was like the only movie where we ever had a professional set photographer for run of show, where they got every second of every day, thousands of these like amazing high quality pictures, and no one's ever seen them. So I edited together almost all the journals. I cut out some of mine because I wrote one almost every night, and I wanted, you don't need to keep hearing from me constantly, So I cut out some of my own, but everybody else's are in there. And then you get to watch the making of the movie almost like exactly as we did it. It's about an hour long, and the
That's awesome.
photography is incredible. And then the other one is called Swamp Tales, and it's a conversation between myself, Will Barrett, the DP of 3 of them, and Sarah Albert, who produced all of them. And we just kind of sat down with beers and talked about most of the story. Like if you've ever seen one of the panels at a convention or something,
Yeah.
maybe you've heard 1 or 2 of them, but a lot of them are things you wouldn't normally talk about on a commentary. So there's definitely going to be stories in there that people haven't seen, behind the scenes photos, videos, and stuff like that. It's a really great documentary about the whole almost 20 years now, because we shot the first one in 2005. I can't believe it's almost 20 years. It's crazy. But some of the stories are hilarious.
Some I've heard, and I remember even on some podcasts, people that were talking about them, actors. Remember Tiff Shepis talking about her scenes and then the things that happened, and also Danielle Harris, who was talking about the scene in the film where with the tree and everything.
And the ants that were all over eating her alive. Yeah.
So and
that's the thing, when you watch the behind the scenes that we put on the disc, it always looks like, even if it was, difficult or challenging, that it was so fun.
Yeah.
It's really not. I think the first one was really fun because we didn't know any better and we were just so excited we were making a movie. But the amount of things that went wrong, I mean, on all of them, but it's just like, I don't even know how they got finished. And I don't, like the fourth one, I don't remember much of the shoot because we only had 11 days to shoot the fourth one. The first one was like 23 or 22 days. And then, which is weird. Like, how does something that keeps getting more successful and you're on the fourth one?
Yeah.
And now you have
less days.
But the industry has just changed so much. Like, we were very fortunate that when the first one hit, there was still Blockbuster Video. There was still, like, we had a theatrical release. The first one was in like 100 screens, but nobody really knew it was there. The MPAA cut it to shit. Like it wasn't the same movie. Like, it was so bittersweet to get a theatrical release for your first film and then go see it and be like, that's not what. So it's been a long, crazy ride. And the fact that everyone, I think for the most part, everybody is still friends. Like, we've, at this point at Aeriescope, we've made, I think, 10 movies together, and then 2 seasons of Holliston and 3 seasons of Scary Sleepover, and all. It's just, you never would think. And even the Halloween shorts that we do every year, this is going to be our 26th year doing a Halloween short. I just got indigestion thinking about that. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but we always get it done somehow. So
the Halloween socks was that.
Because we couldn't do anything because of the strike. So we had to figure out like a work, because we weren't going to let that stop us. So, and it's always
creative.
It's the ones that we don't have time for that usually do the best. Because like Jack Chop is still like far and away. That one went viral immediately, like over 1 million views right out of the gate. And and that one was just a throwaway because we didn't have time. And I'm like, oh, we'll just do this thing. And Paul Sala will speak in a Boston accent. And it'll be funny to us, whatever. At least we'll still do one. And then boom. And then there's other ones where we tried. Isn't
that how it always happened? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And
that's how it works.
Yeah. But you can't compete on YouTube if like the people that are after views all the time, they just care about how many views they get. You can't compete with somebody getting kicked in the nuts or a cute cat. Or even someone opening boxes. What the fuck was that? Who wants to watch someone open boxes? I still don't understand people watching each other play video games. When I was a kid, if it was Luigi's turn, I would go outside and play. Like, I didn't want to watch someone else play. What's wrong with you?
Listen, that's how it always is. You'll post something and you're like, you worked, man, this took me hours and hours, but post a clip that took like 30 seconds of thought or something, and then
huge,
like, this went viral. What in the world? Yes, I've had that same thing happen, so it's very interesting. So, and speaking of these, the difficulties that were happening during that, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were filming the Hatchet series? Like, and is there something? So I know that a lot of things went crazy. Is there something specific that was really difficult, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Wow. When we made Frozen, which was three actors suspended 50 feet in the air on
Oh
the side of
yeah,
a mountain in the dead of winter with live wolves, I figured this is the hardest thing we're ever going to do. And then we did Hatchet 3, and that was like warfare. Like, because
oh my
we
goodness.
shot a bunch of Hatchet 3 in a real swamp at night in the summer.
Oh no.
It was supposed to shoot in the spring, but then the way these things go, and you're waiting for the money to be released so you can get
Right.
started and blah, blah, blah. And then like someone went to urgent care almost every single night on that movie, because no matter how much bug spray you put on,
Oh
you
no.
just got eaten alive. And there's a
Oof.
great story on one of the new special features about a certain person who wound up getting a chigger in their asshole. And if you don't know what a chigger is, it's a bug that basically lays eggs inside you, and you have to put nail polish remover on it to dry it out and kill it before it hatches. And it's a good story. But 3, and then like the weather, there was a whole thing in 3
Oh yeah.
where there's a group of police officers that go in first. They get wiped out, and then a SWAT team shows up. And we were so excited about this set piece because it was called in the script the Forest of Gore. And even our crew t-shirts. So for my films, the crew shirts always look like concert shirts.
Right.
So the Hatchet 3 one, I think it was Hatchet 3, but it looked like a Slayer logo. And then on the back, like tour dates, I list all of the shoot dates and what we shot that night. And it said on the back, the 2012 Forest of Gore shirt or something like that tour. Because we shot it in 2012, I think it came out in 2013. And all of a sudden, after 6 hours of dressing the swamp with just intestines and body parts, and I mean, it was literally just a forest dripping in gore. It was so cool.
Oh, no.
And then a storm suddenly came and washed away our whole set. And that's why we had to bring the balls back. Where the only real moment is when Deputy Schneiderman is like, these are somebody's balls. Balls are not supposed to be hanging from trees. You know, I find myself looking at somebody's balls. So he's not even an actor, Cody, by the way. He was my assistant on Frozen, and he's so funny. I'm like, just be you. But yeah, that 3 was probably the hardest of all of them. And then 4 was brutal just because we didn't have enough time. So we had to move so fast. But thankfully, the cast that I had was so good, and the crew was so good on 4 that, and that's the thing, I need to stress this. I get to be like the mouthpiece of this because I created it, or I wrote it, or directed, whatever, but it's the people around me, it's the crew that makes it all happen, especially the effects crew, what they pull off. Because I write this stuff and I'm like, no CG, and then they're like, how the fuck do you chainsaw 2 people vertically at the same time without any CG? I'm like, you can do it. And like, that's where my work on it ends.
You gotta go old school,
but they do it every time.
That's awesome. That was actually goes into my next question here about, so it features some notable ensemble cast of actors. So how'd you go about casting these roles? And can you share some of the memorable moments working with this casting crew?
Wow. Well, I've been very fortunate with these, that I've always been able to, for the most part, ever since the first one, cast them before I write them. So I'm writing the roles with specific people in mind. Oftentimes they already know I'm writing them a role. And so I can write to their strengths, especially comedic strengths. So like, just as a good example, I became friends with Felissa Rose by doing the horror conventions and stuff. And then when she did my web show, Scary Sleepover, she did this impression of her first agent. And I was just like, that's a character. And like, that's what her character is in Victor Crowley. But she's so funny in that movie, because it was written for her to excel. Same thing with like Q from Impractical Jokers. He was like, I'm not really an actor. I'm like, you just have to be you. Like, one of the hardest parts of acting is just being comfortable in front of the camera and being real. Because a lot of people, they're like, oh, there's a camera on me, I'm acting now. Like, you can always tell. But all Q had to do was be comfortable and be himself, and he was great. So it's just been, I think the most exciting moment though, working with actors. It was like the second night of shooting the first one. And this was a tough lesson that I learned. Never shoot the beginning of the movie first because
Yeah.
things are going to go wrong. And anyway, Robert Englund shows up, and I had talked to him on the phone, but I hadn't met him before.
Right.
And he's just like, "Where's Victor Crowley? I want to see Kane." And no one had seen Kane yet, except for myself and the effects crew. And so I call up to the trailers and I'm like, "Can Kane come down?" And of course the answer is no. And it's like, "But Robert Englund wants to see you." He's like, "I'll be right there." And then standing between the two of them as a lifelong fan and watching Robert gush over the makeup job and tell Kane, "This is your new thing. This is going to be huge. Do you understand how big this is going to be?" And I'm barely even hearing that because I'm like, everyone hopes that, but who knows?
Yeah.
But watching the two of them, these two guys who have played two of the biggest icons ever, just discuss it. And I'm just standing between them like I was 4 years old again. Like it was just, it was incredible. And there's been so many moments like that.
Had to be an amazing moment. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's never been like a bad actor on one of these sets in terms of like difficult or not all in. I mean, Danielle's a great example of that. What she goes through, but she's been doing this like almost 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. Almost 20 years, just in case she sees this. Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
But she's one of the strongest people I've ever met. Like she will not complain, or if she ever does, which I don't think she ever has on one of my sets, it's because like someone's going to get hurt type thing. Like she is just unstoppable. And also as a director, I don't know if you ever saw the movie she directed, Among Friends. There's this one scene in that movie where a character like loses their mind and the camera just goes outside of their head and you see the whole crew and everything. And then it goes back into so good. So yeah, it's the other people that I've gotten to work with. I'm just really fortunate to have this group of friends.
Yeah, I've heard her talk about the shoot and everything on her podcast. And so she's talked about that, and that's how I heard that Ant story. So it was seems like she had a really good time, but she's always talking and really passionate about everything that she does. So
yes,
it's always exciting to see that. And speaking of which, you had some great people in here. The Hatchet series itself has a dedicated fan base that has grown. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of seeing how the fans have reacted or embraced the films over the years?
I think the greatest thing about horror movies is that there's a new, or at least there's probably a few hundred new horror fans born every day. So just like I kind of came into loving horror when I was, I don't know, probably like 8 or maybe more like 6, just because I loved Halloween so much, the holiday. And so there was years of horror movies that now I had to go see and find at the video store, or then you'd hear about something like Cannibal Holocaust or Faces of Death, and those were a little bit harder to find. And then it was like the search for it. And then once you saw Cannibal Holocaust, you regretted ever wanting to see it. I'm not into animal violence. I can't take it. But still, I just think that it's been so cool to just see how much bigger it gets every year. And now to go to conventions and see people cosplaying, not just as Victor Crowley, but as other characters from the movies. Yeah. And now there's been 3 action figures so far, and they're not like custom action figures that you can only get from this one place online. Like it's NECA and Mego, and to be standing in Walmart or Target and see them there alongside all the stuff I love is such a trip. And that's, I think for our genre, that's like winning like a major award, because that's like what's cooler than that? Or like the Halloween mask or the comic book series that's been going for like, I don't know, like 7 years now or something probably.
Yeah.
So, and just meeting the fans who made this possible, because you got to remember, like this wasn't a studio movie that was released with marketing and where you can like do this big push. It's so rare to see something just keep going like this, and it's all the fans. I love that they go out of their way to support us. Like they buy the physical media, they come to events, they buy merchandise, because they know like we don't really see anything off of the actual movies because it's just a shitty industry. But I think with horror fans, they understand that and they want to support you, and because they want you to be able to make more stuff. And so it's just such a special thing. And I wish that people who made like romantic comedies or documentaries got to experience the fan base that we get to experience and interact with and meet face to face. But that's what keeps you wanting to do it. Because I'm going to be honest, after each movie, it's like, all right, I'm done. There's a million other things I could do with my life that would be so much easier. And then you go meet the people who appreciate it, and you're like, there's nothing else I could ever do. I have to go do another one. I don't care how many limbs I lose doing this. I'm doing it. So
it's always so cool. It's always so cool. I remember going into seeing in the Walmart the Halloween and Ghostface, and then I was like, oh, they have the Victor Crowley, the costumes, and I was like, I thought it was so cool. I was like, oh, look, that's that's Hatchet. And I remember telling my son about it. He's like, who's that? I was like, oh, let me tell you. And then so he's been on a kick too, wanting to. So I've been taking him down the lane, and we've watched other horror films, and so I was like, Hatchet is one of the coolest, and I love that the fans. And speaking of that, like, what has been one of the most memorable experiences that you've had with meeting the fans at a convention?
The most memorable, and I think this is on the disc for Hatchet too, but the most memorable, I was actually doing it was a signing promoting Frozen at San Diego Comic-Con. And in San Diego, there's a lot of military there. And like, I'm the guy who, if I'm in an airport and I see somebody in like fatigues, I have to go up and say like, thank you for like, cause it's just, I'm in awe by people, and not just soldiers, but any first responder. Like, I'm not tough enough. Like, I'm just like, there's a reason why I'm making movies, because I don't think I could do anything else. And I'm so grateful that there's people out there that do these jobs, and what they give and what they sacrifice and the time away from their families. And this soldier came up through the line and told me this story. I'm going to probably mess it up because it was 14 years ago now. But the short version of it was that he had 3 other friends over in the Middle East in his platoon, I guess. And one of them did not make it back. And he was telling me that they were going to they all lived in different parts of the country. But when Hatchet 2 opened, they were going to go and bring his ashes so they could all go together. And like, I had to like step away from the table after that. Like I've gotten better over the years. I'm a very sensitive, emotional person. I can't hear a story like that and just shake it off and turn to the next person. Like, I have to like deal with it. But it was I can't put into words how much I appreciated that. And it's always stuck with me. And I think about that when things are like really hard. It's like, whatever I'm going through that I think is so hard is nothing. And I can do this. Like, and there's people who need it, but to think that there were people in harm's way, and their way of trying to like decompress was to watch something we did, was there. And then it changed my life in a way, because then I never cared about reviews ever again. And all these filmmakers, like, I've been very fortunate to get invited to like the Masters of Horror dinners and things like that, and to know everybody. But it wouldn't matter what they said when they're like, they would always say things like, consider the source before you let this get to you. Would you ask this person their opinion on what you're like? Who fucking cares? But after that, it's, I don't care what anybody, like, I mean, what is, I don't know. As a creator, I don't know if there's a higher compliment.
Well, that's usually what it's about. I mean, it's the people you touch, there's someone critiquing, but the people, there's still a mass of people that are more familiar, more engaging with the content you put out there, and it's going to touch people, because people have they get to sit in places where they are not in the best of shape, and if they get to relax or decompress, and they get to watch something that you've created, and you've put them, something that you put out there, put them at ease, or put them into a state of like, this, I love this got me through this. You hear these stories like that. That's like what it's really about. The people you touch, the people you connect with.
It's and again, that I know it happens with any genre, but because of conventions and because like I've been fortunate enough that at least with my last two films, I was able to tour with them. Which other than like Kevin Smith, I'm not sure how many other people can do that. And then after every screening, getting to sign for everybody in that theater and meet everybody and hear their story, like it's so special in a way that I just wish everybody could experience that. Because I have friends who've made some amazing movies, but for whatever reason, they're not asked to come to conventions, and like they never get to have that reaction. And then I'll see people walking around dressed as characters they created, and I'll send them pictures. Dude, look at this! It's so cool. So I'm just I know I keep saying it, but I'm just very fortunate that I've had the career I've had so far.
So can't think of a better way to kind of wrap this up. And so the Steelbook, can you tell people when to expect the Steelbook and where they can find you?
Okay, so the Steelbook, I think it officially comes out tomorrow on June 25th. I believe people who pre-ordered it from Dark Sky Films I think they already have started shipping. People who ordered it through my company, through Ariscope.com, we only had a very small amount of ones that I autograph and send, which again, the fact that fans go out of their way to buy it from us directly is incredible. I think ours are going to start shipping tomorrow. So you should be able to get it. I think as of right now, because it's a limited release thing, I think the only place you can get it is the Dark Sky Films website, because ours sold out in like under an hour.
Yeah.
But you should be able to get it there and just have it shipped directly to you.
And you're on social media, Adam_FN_green.
Yeah, I'm still on there. I don't
kinda.
I use Instagram more so than Twitter, X, whatever it is. I mean, it's such a trash fire now. Like, so if I do go on, I usually just post something. Like with Twitter, I'll just post something and leave. Like I don't look at it.
I dig it.
And then with Instagram, I'm a little more interactive, but I don't know. I'm also really busy, and I applaud the people who can keep up with it and just be on there all the time. But I'd rather live a real life than be on there.
I dig it. Well, thank you, Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for sharing your insights and stories with us. I could talk to you all day, honestly. You know what I
mean? Whenever you meet somebody else who's into it, you're like,
it's
a friend I've always had. Yeah.
Even without the questions, it's, it'd be so cool. So we're excited for the release of Hatchet, the complete collection Steelbook, out tomorrow, June 25th. Get your copy now. Go to Dark Skies. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later.
Hello there, freaks and geeks. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Up Your Geek Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed this show. Today, we had the absolute pleasure of having Adam Green on as he shared his insights and experiences behind the Hatchet series and his work in the horror genre. Don't forget, the Hatchet Complete Collection and limited edition Steelbook will be available starting June 25th. Make sure to grab your copy and experience all 4 films, including new bonus material in their uncensored glory. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast, like and subscribe to our channel, and follow us on social media to be in touch and in the know with more exclusive interviews and more entertainment news. I'm your host, Lulamar Booker, and until next time, keep your geek flag flying high.